CNN is filing a lawsuit against the White House to get Jim Acosta his press pass back, and their efforts are being stood with many other mainstream media outlets, particularly the one that I'm most interested in is Fox News. The reason I'm most interested is, as someone who's right-wing, I hear all the time from other right-wingers, oh, Fox News is different. Yes, the rest of the media, 90% of it, the mainstream media, is rabidly anti-Trump. They're just a mouthpiece of the Democratic Party, but Fox News is different. At least they'll have people with differing opinions on. And look, I'm not saying to any of these news outlets, by the way, that we should ignore anything they say. Even the outlets I hate have facts at times, so you should at least give, if someone says, hey, read this article, here's where I'm getting my opinions from, you should at least do them the courtesy of reading it if they ask you to do. And sometimes they can have just facts. They might say, CNN might say, oh, according to Trump's administration, GDP was 3.23% last quarter. That's a fact. You could check that's a fact or not. Some people say, I refuse to believe that because it's just CNN. Well, I don't think we should do that. And there are people that at some of these outlets that I think are better than others. For example, at Fox, I really like Tucker. Jake Tapper at CNN, I'm not a big fan of, but at least he will ask hard questions of Democrats at times, and I think that's good. There's others, so I'm not saying because the outlet in general is terrible and they're all owned by these corporations have an agenda. That doesn't mean that specific people sometimes can have good points that work within those organizations. But let's not kid ourselves. These aren't journalistic organizations. They're owned by the 6 corporations, almost all of our mainstream media, and they have an agenda to push. And part of that agenda is they want to keep out any independent competition. So they all side together. That's why an organization like Fox that's supposedly different and at bitter odds with CNN and MSNBC, in reality, they're going to back them because it's all about maintaining their power as a group. Just like at the establishment level of politics, the Republican and Democratic Party, they're all about maintaining their power. They agree on all the important things, the stuff that means them maintaining power, and they disagree over superficial things. It's very similar to that. So let me read part of the statement that a bunch of these organizations, including Fox, signed on to. It says, it is imperative that independent journalists have access to the president and his activities, and that journalists are not barred for arbitrary reasons. Our news organizations support the fundamental Constitution right to question this president or any president. Now, to me, the key thing here is the first part of it. It says it's imperative that independent journalists have access to the president. Well, if that's the case, then surely the same people, the same news organizations and outlets that signed on to this would be defending people like Alex Jones having access to the president, or Dave Rubin, or any other number of independent journalists. But they don't. Not only do they not advocate for these people to have access to these White House press briefings, they in fact are encouraging tech companies and social media to do everything they can to censor these people. Why? Because they're competitors. The mainstream media have been for years gatekeepers of all the politics and information, or the vast majority that goes out into the public. They don't want to lose that status. They see true independent journalists, and by that I mean journalists that maybe are online or could be anywhere, but aren't employed by these mainstream media outlets. They see them as competitors. They don't want them to have a voice. So this statement is garbage. And anyone who thinks that Fox News is somehow different, it's also garbage that they would say that. It just shows that they're all a big club, the mainstream media, and they don't want any competition. They want to have almost total control over all information about politics and other news stories that go out to the public. And that's a very dangerous thing. That's one thing I'm optimistic about. I think even despite attempts at censorship, we're starting to see the cracks coming through in the mainstream media and independent people on both sides. You have right-leaning people, like centrist-type people, I would say, like Dave Rubin, right-leaning people like Steven Crowder, people like Joe Rogan that are kind of just in the middle. You have people on the left like Jimmy Dore that are progressives. All these people, they're all being attacked by the mainstream media. They don't want any of them at these press briefings. But wait a minute, I thought their statement says that it's important that independent journalists have access to the president. Well, apparently not, right? Now, you would ask them, why wouldn't you want these people? Like, why wouldn't you want Alex Jones there? And they would say, oh, he would act like a buffoon. He's such a character. He hasn't earned the right. Like, you don't want some joker like that interviewing the president. Exactly. That's the same reason that Acosta got the boot. Now, they're saying that in CNN's lawsuit, they're saying that Trump violated Acosta's First and Fifth Amendments, like his due process and his right to free speech. Well, that's absurd. Would that not mean that all of us that aren't invited to the press briefings have our First Amendment violated? What is it unique about Jim Acosta that he deserves to be there? Oh, because some corporation has a big news station and therefore he should have special rules. I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. Other people have press passes too, and they're not invited to the White House press briefings. Does that mean their First Amendment rights have been violated? Is that what CNN's really calling for? Let's have 100. Let's just Skype the press briefings, and we'll have 100,000 journalists, like my small town newspaper journalist who has a press pass. He's allowed to be there too. Then we'll just randomly take questions. That means CNN would almost never be able to ask a question. Do you think they'd be happy with that? Do you think Fox News or MSNBC or any of these New York Times? Do you think any of them would be happy with that? Of course not. When they say independent journalists have to have access to the president or it violates their First Amendment rights, what they really mean is the ones that have been picked and cleared by these 6 major corporations, they deserve to have a voice there. No one else does. That's what they mean. And if we can't kick Jim, if Jim Acosta can't have his pass revoked for acting like a fool, then what's the limit? Right? Can he next time refuse to give up the mic, scream? Can he bring a bullhorn? Right? Apparently, revoking his pass for any reason would be a violation of his First Amendment. If Trump's really interested in destroying free speech, why did he only revoke Acosta's press pass? Have you seen these press briefings? Many people ask Trump difficult questions. It's just Acosta was acting so much like a buffoon that was the reason for him to be kicked out. He wouldn't give up the mic when he was asked to. He made a fool of himself. He attacks the president, not just asking questions. And you might say, well, yeah, the president does it back to him. So what? I don't agree that the president does that. What are you going to do, though? Kick the president out of the briefings? It's him being questioned. And remember, this is the same media that went crazy when Trump criticized the judge. They said, oh, Trump has to respect the office of judge, right? For him to come out and criticize that, he doesn't have any respect for the office. Yet at the same time, they have no problem defending someone like Acosta who has no respect for the office. Again, you might say, well, Trump hasn't earned respect. Okay, that's a fair point that you could make. But that's not respect for the office then. That is the statement that we don't respect offices. We respect people in the offices if they act respectable. But that's not what they said when Trump criticized a judge, because Trump's argument would be, I don't feel these judges are acting respectable. Therefore, I should be allowed to criticize. Oh, no, said the mainstream media. That's not respecting the office. How dare Trump do that? And on the other hand, they send a buffoon like Jim Acosta out to have no respect for the office, refuse to listen to the president when he says, okay, next person's questions, tries to shrug away to keep the mic, continues screaming, yelling, accusing the president of things after his time to ask questions has been over. If Trump was really interested in ending the free press, he wouldn't ask any questions from anyone he would feel would be critical of him. Instead, he seems to be one of the more transparent presidents we've ever had. He goes out knowing that 95% of the people at these press briefings despise him and are going to do anything they can to ask questions to make him look like a fool, as opposed to Obama, who they had pure adulation for and did everything they could to make him look like a great, awesome person. So if Trump really wanted to go after the press, he'd take a cue off Obama's playbook. He would have spied on Acosta. He would have sent his intel agencies to spy on him and Acosta's family, like Obama did to James Rosen, because Rosen wrote a story that Obama didn't like. Isn't it odd that the press seems to be more up in arms about Trump attacking free speech from just kicking some buffoon out of the press briefings, as opposed to Obama actually using his intel agencies to spy on journalists that he didn't like, and going after whistleblowers that talk to these journalists more than any president in history? It just lets you know where their priorities are, because Obama was establishment and the mainstream media's establishment, so they're going to go soft on him. They don't like outsiders. They don't want independent journalism. When they're talking about the importance of the First Amendment, they're lying to you. They don't want everyone to have free, independent access to the president at all. They just want to maintain their status as gatekeepers, and that's why they're constantly advocating censoring independent journalists by tech companies any way they can. So this entire lawsuit's ridiculous, I think. I also think that it just shows that Fox News is just more of the same in general. Again, I'm not saying that means Yeah, I personally don't watch almost any mainstream media. I'll see clips once in a while if I'm looking up a news story. I do like Tucker, like I said, I watch him, but that's about it. I'm not telling you, oh, if you're watching these, you're a bad person or anything like that. I'm just saying, keep in mind when you're watching these that the people, you might like Jake Tapper, maybe you like Rachel Maddow or something. I don't know why, but perhaps you do. But just keep in mind that their bosses, the people that run these outlets, are all owned by 6 corporations, and they have a vested interest in keeping actual independent voices out of the conversation. So, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Check out my other videos. Recommend this channel to other people if you like it. I'm going to be getting new equipment soon, so the quality of my recording should be increasing, hopefully. Too bad we couldn't get a more attractive person or a smarter person to do these. That would work better than just a new microphone. But I digress. So, yeah, like and subscribe, and have a good one.